Alright, today we're going to be making an Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind tier list for the major skills. So this is going to include all the skills within Morrowind, but really what I'm ranking is based on these criteria. Does the skill help you solve problems? How easy is it to level and train? And does it make the game more fun? So choosing a major skill increases your starting level by 25 points, and it makes it level about 30% faster than a minor skill and about 60% faster than a miscellaneous skill. All right, we're going to go in alphabetical order. So let's start with Acrobatics. So Acrobatics just increases your jump height. The formula is just the fall damage that you would take times 125 minus your skill. So at 125 Acrobatics, I can fall from any height and I will never take any fall damage. Also, your jump height is 64 plus your acrobatics. So with an acrobatics of 0, I jump 1/2 the height I would if I had an acrobatics of 64. So at 64, you double your jump height, and this does actually make you move quite a bit faster. As your acrobatics increases, when you jump, you move pretty far forward. And if I use this little spell of jump, it can make me travel pretty fast with even just 20 points of jump. However, with that said, I don't really need an acrobatics skill to cause my jump spell to work here. I can just enchant something to make me jump faster. And I don't think going from 5 to 30 is a massive difference, but it can make the beginning of the game a little bit more enjoyable because you'll travel somewhat faster. With that said, acrobatics is going into C tier, and really a big part of that is the fun factor. I think realistically it'd be more in D tier if you're only looking for player power. In Morrowind, it is also governed by strength, meaning as a miscellaneous skill, it's pretty nice to just jump around and get better boost to strength without leveling too quickly from that. Now, I certainly wouldn't worry too much about attributes in Morrowind, especially with unlimited trainers, but you also don't want to completely ignore them. Next, we have Alchemy, and Alchemy could be its own video just talking about all the specific mechanics of it. Even without Fortify Intelligence loops, which is a way to basically break the game by fortifying your intelligence to make infinitely powerful potions, infinite gold, and create infinite power, Alchemy is still an absurdly powerful skill. The three formulas that are important are, well, one, there's the success chance. That just takes your skill, plus 1/10 of your intelligence, plus 1/10 of your luck. This is one of the few things in the game that fatigue does not affect it at all. You could be exhausted or have fortified fatigue and it won't help you. I actually didn't know that until making this video. I ranked Orc higher because I thought they could use their Berserk power to increase their chance to make a potion. But that's not true. With that said, starting at 5 or 10 Alchemy will lead you to have very, very low chance to make a potion. You'll have to use 10 or more ingredients to make a single potion to gain any experience to gaining a level. It will functionally require you to train alchemy up with gold before making any potions at all. Choosing it as a major skill, well then you'll start with 38 and it actually does become a little bit more viable. With that said, unlike the later games, the best way to get ingredients in Morrowind is to buy them from vendors. They are very cheap, and as soon as you get to about that 35-40 skill range, and you've put a few points into intelligence, you get to 50% chance to make a potion, which means on average you need 4 ingredients to make a successful potion. At this point, your potions could be selling from 50 to possibly 100 gold. So you could buy 1 value ingredient, which instantly restock and sell them back. So it's already broken the game at this point, which means you can get to a point where the game is functionally done because you picked alchemy as a major skill and maybe you specialized in magic. With that said, I don't like to totally break the game, so I try to avoid alchemy other than some of the more basic effects like fortifying something, levitate, or maybe restoring magicka to keep the game interesting. All that combined puts alchemy easily in the S tier. The only reason it would be less than this is if you personally don't like it or you feel that it's too powerful that it's cheating, but it is clearly an awesome pick. And the only reason you wouldn't pick it as a major skill is because, well, you know it doesn't matter. You can just train it up and break the game with it anyway, even without picking it. But it's an incredible choice. It's an incredible skill in the game. Next, we have Alteration. Alteration includes Levitate, Open Spells, Shield Spells, and my personal favorite, Jump and Swift Swim. It's also got stuff like Feather and Burden, but those are frankly too expensive to really work. So the main things you'll be using with Alteration is Levitate, Open, and Jump. If I want to make a spell that would open any lock, it would need to have a minimum and maximum magnitude of 100, which would give it a final cost of 60 magicka. With just 40 skill and 50 willpower, at max fatigue I have a 42% chance to open the most difficult lock in the game. At even just 20 skill, which is only just a little bit lower, it's 20 less skill, my final chance goes into the negatives. It's not possible for me to open that lock with only 20 skill. So even picking it as a minor skill with magic specialization is not enough. But just increasing your skill at the beginning of the game, getting from 5 to 50 is a dramatic difference. At just 50 skill with a moderately high willpower, I have a very high success chance to cast that spell. And with most locks that I need to open, I'm able to rest. So I could fail the spell, rest, get my magicka back, cast it again, try again. And because of this, it is very valuable to pick Alteration as a major skill. Now, being able to jump farther with the jump spell or open locks, it's not the most important thing in the world, so it's not S tier, but this does put it in A tier. It's very powerful, it's very useful, and the difference between picking it as a miscellaneous skill versus a major skill is a very big difference. It will make your game a smoother experience. And I certainly have a better time with Alteration. Next, we have Armorer. And for a variety of reasons, this is just right away going to go in the F tier. I would never pick Armorer unless you're picking it for RP reasons. The way it functions is it takes your skill plus 1/5 your strength plus 1/10 of your luck, and then that is multiplied by your fatigue modifier, and that's your repair chance. Notice with even 5 skill, I have over a 1/5 chance to repair. Now in the base game, this fatigue multiplier is flipped. For this whole tier list, I'm going to be assuming you're running OpenMW, which does fix that glitch. And the amount repaired is, well, it's based on RNG. It's not super important. As your skill goes up, you will be able to repair a lot more. I think the difference between picking this as a miscellaneous skill and a major skill is just not that important. I mean, even if we look at 30 skill, my repair chance goes up to 50. 20% to 50% chance, yeah, that's a lot better, but it's not going to make or break your ability to repair your equipment. On top of that, the XP gain for each repair is abysmally small. It's very low. It takes a lot of repairing to get your armor all the way up to 100. And even in OpenMW, the Master Armorer Trainer does not actually offer training services. He's in the game, but he won't offer you any training services unless you use a certain patch or a mod, and I'm not running that mod, so I cannot get my armorer to 100 without repairing an absurd amount of equipment. A successful repair gives you 0.4 experience. Even with combat specialization and armor as a major skill, it would still take over 100 repairs, successful repairs, just to gain a single skill point at those higher levels. Going from 70 to 100 is just going to take way too long, and if you pick it as a major or minor skill, you're functionally limiting your maximum level because you're not going to want to grind up armor at the end. And if you do, it's going to be a very boring grind that's not giving you any player power, that's not benefiting you in any way. It's just, oh, I need to gain a level, so I better grind out my armorer skill, which I can't even use a trainer to do so because he doesn't offer training services. I think the correct way to play with armorer is put it as a miscellaneous skill. If you really want to not carry so many hammers because of the carry weight, use a trainer to get your skill up to 30. At 50%, it's going to be just fine. At 30, skill is plenty, and then naturally using it, it will go up fast enough to get up to 50. After you get 100 strength, you have a pretty decent repair chance. It's going to be repairing things very fast. Just know after this point, you won't be able to use trainers, and it's just going to level so slowly, but you don't need to get it any higher. After you have a 100% repair chance, it's just slightly increasing the amount repaired, which is just stupid and unnecessary. You never need more than 50 skill in this. Most of my characters, I fortify my strength because I want the carry weight, and it gives you bonus damage as well. So even at 50 skill, I have a 100% repair chance. The idea that I would ever want to waste my time gaining the skill beyond that because I need to gain levels so I get more health, or I want to gain levels, I should say, is annoying. I think picking armorer is intentionally gimping your character. If you mod where the trainer is in there, it's not so bad. Maybe it's D tier, but it's still a waste of your time. I still would never pick it. Next, we have athletics. And no matter what you do, your athletics is going to level very slowly. Kind of like classic Oblivion, it just doesn't level fast enough. You gain 0.02 experience per second of running, which means you have to run for 50 seconds to gain a single experience point, which just leads to hours and hours of playing with running to gain any amount of noticeable skill ups. If you really want to increase it, you're going to be training it because it's just too slow and tedious. However, picking it as a major starts you 25 higher. And going from 5 to 30 athletics is about a 12 to 14% increase to your movement speed. So if you have an extra major that you're not really sure where to throw, you can just throw it into athletics and get a free little bit of extra movement speed. This doesn't matter if you're at low or high speed, that going from 5 to 30 athletics is always a 13.9% increase. So it makes you move faster. It could be worth it. I think typically I want to pick other things. Using jump spells is a better way to move fast. And when you have the Boots of Blinding Speed, if you're going to use those are enough movement speed. You don't really need more. If you're not going to get the Boots of Blinding Speed, you don't plan on using jump spells to make you bunny hop around faster, I highly recommend picking athletics. But that's a lot of niche and specific scenarios. So it's going in the C tier. Okay, next we have axes. Now weapon skills, a lot of it really is your personal preference. What flavor do you like? Axes are pretty slow. They only have a speed of 1.0 for two-handers or 1.25 for one-handers. But the Daedric Battle Axe has a base damage that can deal up to 80 damage if you fully charge the swing. That's incredibly high. You can get that at level 1 with Bound Battle Axe. And unlike the other weapons, they gain 1.2 experience per hit. And this is to make up for them being pretty slow. However, because there's no great unique axes or artifacts that are axes. We're stuck with these ones, though even though they look cool, they just have very weak enchantments. Axe is going to have to go into B tier, and that's just because I like axes. Honestly, if you're being objective, it might even be lower than that, but they're very cool, so they're up to B tier. Okay, next we have to talk about block. Now, when you're blocking in Morrowind, you have to have a shield equipped, meaning you're using a one-handed weapon with a shield, and you will only block if your enemy is within 90 degrees to the left of you or 30 degrees to the right of you, because you hold your shield in your left hand, so you kind of get a cone area that you're protected from. All right, let me do a quick demonstration of what I mean by that block cone. So this character is using a shield, and let's pretend this Argonian is trying to attack me. He's coming right for me. These arrows aren't perfect, but they represent that block zone. So at the start, if he was attacking me, I would have a chance to block him, but if I move over here, now I will no longer block him, even if I have 100 block skill, because he's out of that block zone. Your block chance is always between 10 and 50%. And well, first it uses a block rate formula, which takes your skill, plus 1/5 of your agility, plus 1/10 of your luck, multiplied by your fatigue modifier. But then there's two other multiples. One of them is if you're not moving forward, it's multiplied by 1.25. So if you are moving toward your enemy, well, then that bonus goes away. But if you're not moving towards your enemy, you get an increased 25% chance to block. The next is how much did your opponent charge their attack? So for example, that Daedric Battle Axe did 1 to 80. An NPC might only swing up their weapon to 1 damage worth of charge. That means this attack charge would be at 1.01, and that would be my block chance increase. However, at that little charge, that Daedric Battle Axe would only deal 1 damage. If they hold it back all the way up to 100%, and this multiplier goes to 2, you have an increased chance to block. So block actually is more effective if your enemy is swinging their weapon all the way back. In Morrowind, NPCs just do a random number. So with that Daedric Battle Axe, they're going to do between 1 and 80. Well, if they roll an 80, then you get this 2 times multiplier to your block rate, which is really nice. So you're more likely to stop an attack that will deal more damage to you. Then that block rate is subtracted from your opponent's hit chance. Let's say they have 20% hit chance. Well, obviously I would then have a 26% chance to block. This is only with 5 skill. Now it does have max fatigue. I'm not moving forward, and assuming they fully swung their weapon. However, going up to 30 skill with all of these multipliers quickly skyrockets that block rate. Even with lower fatigue, it's still 100% block rate, which means as long as my opponent has a 50% or less hit chance, then I have the highest percent chance to block an attack. The ceiling is 50%. You will never block more than 50% of attacks. This causes you to gain more experience because you're going to be blocking more. Each block gains 2.5 experience, which is pretty good. It's more than double a weapon swing, but it is still kind of slow. If you're really relying on block, you're going to use some trainers, and that's fine. The last thing I should say about block is that shields have the highest enchant value of anything in the game. Plenty of items have like 10 total enchant value, and if you see this Daedric Tower shield has 225. Meaning just using a shield will allow you to put some absurdly powerful enchantments on your gear. I highly recommend using a shield if you're trying to make a powerful character. If you're RPing or whatever, obviously, use your own brain. You don't need to listen to me. My current playthrough, I'm not using a shield, I'm using a two-handed battle axe. But using a shield is really powerful because of these really high enchant values. A successful block stops all damage except enchant damage. If they have cast on strike, deal 25 shock damage, that will still go through, but it'll stop all the rest of the damage. So block skill, because of all that, goes in the A tier. I think it's very good, but it's not game breaking, and so only game breaking things or really absurdly powerful things will go in S tier. Next, we have blunt weapons, the next weapon skill. Two-handed blunt weapons have a reach of 1.5. Most things have a reach of 1. Spears have a reach of 1.8. So two-handed blunt weapons do have a long reach, which is nice. However, they only gain 1 experience per swing, unlike axes, which were gaining the 1.2, and they're also a little slower like axes, generally. These clubs might be a little bit faster, but you should never use a club. They're the worst weapons in the game. Just if you see one, just throw it in the garbage. Don't even sell it. It's not worth it. Okay, fine. Maybe a Daedric club would be worth it to sell it. It's worth 10,000. But as you can see, these damage values are still so low. 10 to 12 for a Daedric weapon. It's ridiculous. A Daedric Warhammer can do up to 70, which is really awesome. And the Ebony Staff, for whatever reason, an Ebony Staff, no other staff, you would think it'd be all staffs, but just the Ebony has 90 enchant value, which is way more than any other weapon in the game. If you see these other weapons, they might have 16, 10, 15. So if you want to use a weapon that has a really good cast on use or cast on strike, something that you are casting from your weapon and you just want the powerful enchant, the Ebony Staff is the way to go because of that high enchant value. So it's really cool with like a wizard build where you're casting spells from your staff. You can enchant a really powerful Ebony Staff. It's kind of really sad that the newer games don't have quite as cool of a concept with that. Oh, and I should have mentioned staves, whatever. Some of them have the same reach as spears, like 1.8, and they have really high speed. These are very fast. So they don't do a lot of damage, but they're fast, they're light, and this has crazy high enchant value. Some cool, unique maces. The Mesa Moloch Ball is nice because it doesn't just completely suck ass. It absorbs strength and magicka more than it did in Oblivion, and your strength above 100 does more damage. It causes you to deal more damage because you have more than 100 strength. The enemies having less strength makes them deal less damage. And that can be up to 600 magicka. Now it's going to average about 600, but it's still a lot of magicka for one swing. This is a great secondary weapon, and even, it can work as a primary weapon. This Skull Crusher feathers away all of its weight with 15, which is pretty cool for a weapon that can deal 60 damage in an attack, a one-hander that can deal 60, and it fortifies your attack 5, which, whatever, it's okay. Sunder is just insane if you know anything about Sunder, but I don't really want to do spoilers with because, this game's pretty new. Not very many people know much about it. This is the best weapon in the game. I don't even want to talk about it. It's a Holy Staff. Incredible effects. And Veloz Judgment is pretty cool. A Daedric Warhammer with just some extra enchants on it. None of the unique stuff is that amazing. And I would say because you don't even need blunt skill for the ebony staff to be really useful, but I mean, I guess you could use it anyway, attacking people. Really, blunt kind of goes right next to axe. It's good. You can use it. If nothing wrong with picking it, you should pick a weapon skill as a major. I think every build should, unless you're RPing where you don't want to swing a weapon. But it's nice to have something to do when you don't want to waste enchants or magical pool or anything like that. So you should always pick a weapon skill. Blunt's a good one. It's a good choice. Conjuration is next. Now this is one of my favorites, and I'm going to put it in S tier right now, and let me explain why. It's not necessarily game breaking, but bound weapons and bound armor in Morrowind are so much better than they are in Oblivion, and they're still better than they are in Skyrim. You can, for 6 magicka, make a Daedric weapon that weighs nothing and fortifies your skill of that relevant weapon type by 10. So I can make a bound battle axe at 1 to 80 damage axe that gives me 10% more chance to hit because that's what axe skill does at level 1. It's a very cheap spell. You might as well do it. Beyond that, having a good conjuration skill will allow you to, well, make summons like in any other Elder Scrolls game. Being able to summon a Golden Saint that you can soul trap and kill is also kind of nice, and, just having a follower to help you. I kind of hate followers. If you've watched my channel for Oblivion, you know I don't like summons. I like doing everything myself, but they are very good, and on top of that, the bound weapons and the bound armor are so cool. You have a total of 6 options. They're all good. These are the equivalent to Daedric items. Even the bound armor is kind of nice. A bound shield will give you 10 block, boots 10 speed, a right gauntlet's 10 agility. There's decent things you can get from using any bound equipment. It's nice that they have just some base level enchantments and that they're easy to get at an early level. Every single bound item costs 6 magicka, so it's not a lot. And that's for a full minute of duration. There is a bug too. If you repair it, you won't ever be able to delete the item. If you're using OpenMW like me, don't worry about that. But if you're not, I just be careful to never accidentally repair any bound items. I use OpenMW. I like to repair my bound items to raise my armor skill a little bit, but you know how I feel about armor anyway. All right, that's enough about Conjuration. Next, we have Destruction. I already did an entire video on Destruction. Destruction is also very powerful. But magicka does not regen over time in Morrowind like it does in Oblivion, and it's actually very difficult to make a restore magicka potion. I shouldn't say it's very difficult, but if you're not exploiting a vendor where you buy things and sell them back and get infinite of frost salts, it's actually, there's not a ton of ingredients from Alchemy that give restore magicka. There's no flaxseed that you can get combined with those steel blue entalomas. In Oblivion, you can easily get absurd amounts of restore magicka potions. In Morrowind, there's just these comb berries are very cheap and easy, but Daedra hearts, frost salts, and void salt are all kind of rare, and the other 3 require you to go to the expansion places, which you can do too, but for more natural play, you're not going to get a ton of restore magicka ingredients and of restore magicka potions. Because of that, relying too heavily on destruction and not a weapon skill can be kind of damaging. However, if you are using a weapon skill too, you're going to want to be using your magicka for Conjuration, for Alteration, for Mysticism, for Restoration, for the other magic schools, because if you don't need to be killing your enemies with magic, well, magic can do all these other amazing things. If you are a mage, obviously always pick Destruction, but if you're not playing that specific build, Destruction it's just okay. I'm actually going to put it, I'm debating between low A and high B. I'm going to put it in the high B tier. It's phenomenal. I love it. But I want to be realistic to you that if you are not playing a pure mage, it's just not very good. It's not going to be super effective. Where Alteration and Conjuration can help you tons, even if you're just dabbling into magic. Enchant is interesting because it is by far the most powerful skill in the game. It's not even close. Alchemy is amazing and incredible, but Enchant is unique. If you don't have a lot of game knowledge, like which items have a high enchant value, where to get soul gems, what having 110 enchant skill does, what to enchant your gear with, it's not very good. But after you've gained some of that esoteric knowledge, it just breaks the game so easily. It's clearly S. I mean, you could argue Alchemy is more S, I guess. It's between those two. I'm going to try and do this quickly because otherwise we could just talk about it for an hour. Enchant will have its own video at some day. I'll try to do a brief overview right here. The enchant skill lets you make enchanted items. So for example, if I wanted to enchant my ebony closed helm here, I could select it within the enchantment menu, and it tells me that that has a maximum cost of 50. So when I was talking about that Daedric Tower shield that had 225, the ebony staff had an enchantment of 90, those are very high values. If I want to pick my glass greaves, they only have a value of 10. That means the best effect can only have an enchantment point cost of 10. However, keep in mind this enchantment cost is very different than spell cost. Typically, if you don't have something with any duration, it's going to be about half, and that's because it doesn't have duration plus 1 in its formula. So if I wanted to enchant this helm with a open 100 points on touch cast when used spell, it would only take 30 charge rather than 60. And let me explain why that is here. Typically, if you're calculating the cost of a spell, you do the minimum plus the maximum magnitude. So in this example, it'd be 200 times the base cost times the duration plus 1 divided by 40. In my spreadsheet here, I just do the base cost divided by 40 just to get out of the way. But that's how we come up with that final cost. However, when you're enchanting items, that enchantment points cost is the same thing except the duration. Instead of the duration plus 1, it's just the duration. So open 100 as a spell costs 60 magicka, but open 100 as an enchantment costs 30 charge. It's half the price. However, keep in mind if I ever add duration to something, well, now adding 2 seconds doubles it. Where if I'm using destruction, adding 2 seconds to a destruction spell does not double the magicka cost because it's going from 2 to a 3 times multiplier. So when you are enchanting, adding duration to your spells is actually a bad idea, which kind of is nice because it's nice to have enchantments with 1 second destruction spells that you just spam and get them out of the way. And then you can switch to using your magicka or your weapon. It's a lot less switching back and forth. Now, we should also look at the formula for successfully creating an enchanting item. So if I wanted to make that helm, well, that enchantment points was 30, right? To make it open 100 points. So I would put 30 right here. And what that's going to do is it's going to make my success rate 90 lower. So the formula is it takes your skill plus 1/5 of your intelligence plus 1/10 of your luck minus 3 times the enchantment points. So in this case, 30, and then that times your fatigue multiplier. You can ignore this effect as constant for right now, but essentially it makes something twice as hard to enchant if it's a constant effect. So notice, even with 30 skill, I would have a negative 57% chance to successfully create this item. It would literally never happen. Even at 60 skill, it would never happen. We break even at 76 skill with this item, and by break even, I mean I still have a literally 0% chance to create this item. Enchant sucks before you get to 100, like really sucks. However, even at 100 enchant and 100 intelligence, we're looking at a 42%. So what you need to do for enchant is, well, if you want to be making even pretty good spells, this isn't crazy. This spell costs 30. It's not insane. To make this item, I would either need to go spend a boatload of gold at a vendor, which is fine, but that's not using my enchant skill, or I would need to use a spell like Fortify Skill, which you can only get in the expansions, but I could use a 1 second Fortify Enchant 100, Fortify Intelligence 100, Fortify Fatigue 100. I could cast that spell with my magicka, and that would give me a 211% chance to succeed out of nowhere. So there are very easy ways to break it, and honestly, that spell is not that expensive. If we look back down here where the open spell was, I just replaced it with Fortify Skill. That has a base cost of 1. So if I was to put that on an enchanted item, it would only have a final cost of 5. Incredibly cheap. So just fortifying my enchant by 100 and not doing the other things would still be enough. Now, there is added difficulty. If you try to have one enchant with 100 intelligence, 100 skill, and 100 fatigue, it's less likely to succeed. And it does this thing with compounding effects. Essentially, every effect that's after your first one is doubled and then tripled and then quadrupled. Not important. Honestly, if I make a video about it, I would talk more about this. The other thing is, when I make constant effects, I can make something that's Fortify Strength 30 to 30, but that would cost the same as Fortify Strength 1 to 59. And then I can just continually unequip it and re-equip it until I get 50 or higher, or I'm satisfied with the number. Now, obviously, you wouldn't want to do this with jewelry or something you switch out repeatedly for cast on use stuff. But if you have a shield, for example, that you always use, well, you can just have a big range and then unequip it and re-equip it until you get the value you want, and then never unequip it. The next thing is effective cost. So effective cost means normally that open 100 spell would cost 30 30 charge. So that helmet that I was showing you had 50 maximum capacity. If I put an open 100 cast on you spell on it, it would take 30 out of my 50 charge. I could cast it once and then I would have to wait for the helmet to recharge. However, how much charge you use is actually based on your enchant skill as well. It's the base cost, so in this example 30, times 1.1 minus 1% of your enchant skill. So if you have 100 enchant skill, well, it's times 1.1 minus 1, so it's 1/10 of the cost. You can fortify your enchant to 110, and then no matter what, all of your enchants, well, they cost 0, but the game has a minimum of 1. So you could have something with a 225 base cost that you put on that tower shield, and now it will only cost 1 charge. So you can use it 225 times before your shield runs out of charge. It's absolutely absurd. It's totally game breaking. It's ridiculous. It's unfair, but it's the way the game works. Constant effects, I really don't want to talk about constant effects. You need a Grand Soul Gem. It needs to be 400 or greater. Essentially, for a constant effect, the duration is set to 100. So if we had that Fortify skill, well, that would take 500 charge. It just isn't going to fit even on my Daedric Tower Shield. But I could do 1 to 89, and suddenly that looks like it would fit. So I could Fortify Strength 1 to 89 and continually unequip it and re-equip it. I would need to do something massive to fortify my chance to create the item, especially because even after I start increasing it, there is this 1 minus 0.5 times effect is constant. Essentially, I need to just double my chance to make the item to get up to 100% if it's a constant effect. It's just going to make it even harder to do. So really, you need to do a lot of cheesy stuff to get really crazy enchanting, but after you get to 110, you can just make cast on use items. They only cost 1 charge no matter what. I wanted to look at the experience here too. Recharging an item gives you the same amount of experience as creating an item. So functionally, what you do, because enchant is so worthless, before you get to 100 skill, you only have a 55% chance to make an item 50 skill that only has 10 enchantment points. That's not even a good enchantment. You will still fail to make it all the time. So really, enchant is worthless until you get it to 100, except how much charge your items use, but you're not making magic items with enchant until you get to absurd values. So you're going to recharge items. But that's where we got to talk about trainers. The highest enchant trainer is 63, meaning he can get you to 64, and you should not do any enchanting until you've used Skinkentry up to 64. If you plan to get to 100 enchant without this final trainer who is hostile, and I'll tell you how to get around that in a minute. If you plan to do that, save all your soul gems, and then you have to sit there and make a whole bunch of enchanted items to get to 100. And by make a whole bunch of enchanted items, I mean you're just going to recharge all of your enchanted items again and again and again. I can tell you that's going to take 356 soul gems. That's a shit ton of soul gems. That's a boatload of soul gems. That's a lot of gold and time, and it's tedious. So what you need to do is you need to find this Corwin guy who's in Indorenyan, and he's hostile. How can you make him train you? Well, you use a Calm Humanoid spell. He also spams Paralyze at you, which is annoying, but after you do that, after you've calmed him, you have to just bribe him a bunch of gold, make him love you, and then he can train you. So when you go to find this guy, just get 50,000 gold, go find him, and train up your enchant to 100. This guy really is a pain in the ass, and he's even got other hostile people over there. There was a big battle. I forgot to record it, but he was paralyzing me a bunch. I got up to him. I used this Calm Humanoid on touch, and then quickly, while that was going, talked to him and bribed him a whole bunch until he got to 100 disposition. After it's at 100 disposition, now he will train me. And 2 hours pass every time you train. So after those 2 hours pass, if you don't bribe him, he will attack you again after training him. So you have to get him up to 100 disposition, and now he can enchant for you, and he can train for you. Just make sure you've brought about a boatload of gold, but luckily when someone has 100 disposition, training is pretty cheap, so I will be able to gain up to 100 enchant just with this guy right here with my 50k gold pretty easily. And honestly, even doing this is cheaper than just getting all the soul gems. So this is obviously the most effective way, but maybe for RP reasons, you don't want to have to get all your training from a hostile person who you have to use magic to get to like you. It's tedious, it's annoying, and really, you're not going to know this unless you look it up. There's really no reason to be able to find the Enchant Master Trainer. Some people also don't like requiring using meta knowledge. This definitely required me to use the UESP. There's no other reason I would know, oh yeah, of course, Corwin's the Master Enchant Trainer. This random guy who attacks you and tries to kill you, you have to calm him and make him love you, and then you can get 100 enchant. But if you want to use this incredibly powerful skill, that's the way you do it. So, does it matter that it's a major skill or not? Not really if you're using this guy, but if you're not using this guy, you really need to make it a major skill if you're going to be grinding those soul gems, because it will take forever. It's an absolute nightmare. And being able to get the skill up a little bit quicker to get your enchant higher will allow you to not use as much charge with your items. And that's also really nice. Even if you're not creating your own enchantments, just being able to use enchantments a whole bunch before they run out of enchant, that's also nice. Wow. Well, I talked about enchant way longer than I intended to. I'm very sorry. That was a nightmare. It was awful for me. I hope it wasn't awful for you. I don't really like using enchant. Okay, no, I'm done. Hand to hand. Hand to hand is F tier. Well, yep, F tier. Hand to hand is bad because, well, it starts out, it uses the same chance to hit formula that any other weapon does. It takes your skill plus 1/5 of your agility plus 1/10 of your luck plus your attack minus your blind, and all of that multiplied by your fatigue multiplier. Okay, attack and blind are not multiplied, but not important. Get your base hit, multiplies it by your fatigue, subtracts that from your enemy's evasion rate, which could be from 10 to maybe 30 for a high level enemy, and that's your final chance to hit. Then sometimes enemies can block. That's not why hand-to-hand sucks. Hand-to-hand sucks for one reason. The problem is its damage. Hand-to-hand does really bad damage because, well, it's not normally modified by strength. Now, you can use an open MW setting to make your hand-to-hand modified by strength. I like to play with that on. 50 strength is base damage. 100 strength gives you 50% more damage. However, notice, even if I doubled this number, this health damage would be 15, and that's talking about 150 strength, 100 skill, the best you can do, and it can't have an enchant where doing 15 damage divided by armor. Really, we got to talk about how armor works too. So the way armor works is it's not complicated, but it's a little convoluted. So there's a damage reduction. Let's say my enemy has 20 armor rating. What it does is it does this formula, 1 plus my armor rating divided by the damage. So if I hit for 7.5 damage and my enemy has 20 armor rating, well, 20 divided by 7.5 plus 1 is going to give me this number here, this 3.6 repeating. This number cannot be more than 4. To find your damage taken, you do your damage dealt divided by this number. So if I punch someone with an armor rating of 20, which is not very high, I will only deal 2 damage with my hand-to-hand. And this only happens after I've knocked them on the ground. Yes, 50 fatigue damage isn't bad because now I have 100 skill, but 2 damage is unacceptable. And they could very easily have 30 armor rating, which gives me to the damage reduction cap. The armor cap is basically 75%. You will never reduce damage dealt by more than 4 times. So this armor rating of 30 is dividing my damage dealt by 4, meaning I'm doing 1.875, less than 2 health damage. It's unacceptable. Hand-to-hand is garbage, absolute ass. Even with the strength modifiers, maybe if you're doing 15 damage with good strength, well, now with 30 armor rating, I get to do 5 health damage. But if they have 50 armor rating, I'm doing 3.75 still. It's just, you can't do this low of damage. Doing this low of damage against armored opponents is so stupid. It's just stupid. Oh my god, it's giving me a headache. Okay, so F tier, that's why hand-to-hand is an F tier. You can use it for RP reasons, I guess, but honestly, it's so tedious to kill things with a lot of health. Beyond that, have you ever used hand-to-hand and went and tried to kill the first mud crab? Let's watch. So I set this character's agility to 75 and I set his hand-to-hand to 50, just to show you how effective he is against a mud crab at level 1. So you're thinking, okay, I'm hitting him. Yeah, because I have high hand-to-hand and high agility. You can hear me hitting him, right? However, I can use console commands to show you his fatigue is still 295. A mud crab has 500 fatigue. Creatures just get 500 fatigue. I'm dealing 25 fatigue damage. This is ridiculous. It's going to take a long time just to knock this mud crab down. I need to have really high hand-to-hand. Here, just to make it faster, to show you, let's set it to 100. This is a master hand-to-hand player. The best, and I'm fighting a mud crab. A mud crab. Absolutely unacceptable. Can I even beat a mud crab? There, I knocked him down, and now I'm killing him. Because he has no armor, I'll be able to kill him. That was abysmal. What a nightmare. For having 100 skill, it took me that long to kill a mud crab. F minus. Heavy armor. Well, we already talked about how armor works. It stops more damage, even percentage-wise, proportionally, if it's a weak attack. So if you have 100 armor rating and it's only 25 damage, you're easily going to stop 75% of the damage. But if the damage is higher than your armor rating, you're going to stop a lot less of the damage. Heavy armor provides the most protection, but it actually is really heavy. A full set of Daedric weighs quite a bit, and yeah, the armor rating's great. You're going to be indestructible, but do you really want to be that weighed down just to be indestructible? Honestly, I'd rather die. So because of that, we're going to put it in B tier. It is amazing. It's awesome. If you want to make the most powerful character, heavy armor is for the most powerful characters. you pick it. It's got great unique items too and special items. Very reasonable arguments put in A tier. I just personally don't like moving slow. That's it. That's all there is to it. Illusion. Illusion's great. It's got tons of different spell effects, a lot of variety, a lot of different choices you can do. Some of them are kind of ridiculous. Like, I'm not going to use blind. I'm not going to use sound. Like, I get the purpose. I'm not going to use light or night eye. I never need to. There are mods that make some of this stuff better or more worth it, I guess you should say. But invisibility, chameleon, charm, calm, there's a lot of things that are very valuable. Paralyze is still great. And unlike Oblivion, you actually do want to specialize in illusion if you want to cast charm. You're not going to have 10 illusion skill and be able to cast a good charm spell. Charm has a base cost of 5, which means it costs as much as a fireball. Even if you only want to do it for a couple seconds to have a really high magnitude, it's just not very feasible at a very low illusion skill. Because of its versatility, I think Illusion's really good, but it's not quite up to A tier. I'm going to put it in B tier. It's very good, very versatile. It's got tons of uses, but I don't know. Have you ever just blown something up with a fireball? It's way cooler. Light armor is great. I like it a lot. It does look cool, and if you're wearing glass, you still get a lot of armor, and you don't really need more. I understand that heavy armor provides more protection, but just that massive difference in carry weight, it allows you to carry so much more potions, so much more treasure, and just not worry about encumbrance, which is a big deal in Morrowind. You want a lot of gold. You're going to find a bunch of magic items worth 30,000 or something ridiculous, and you don't ever want to have to like play the inventory game where you're dropping things. And light armor does a great job of not making you pick stuff up. So I'm going to put it in the A tier. Feather is so expensive in this game, it's not very viable. For example, if I wanted to cast 100 feather for a minute, it's 300 magicka. Even at 100 skill, it's just not really an option. Half of that, 50 feather, is still 150 magicka. It's just stupidly expensive. It's not really viable to use it ever. I would rather just fortify my strength. It's way better for carry weight. Feather, the purpose is to get rid of all of your encumbrance, but it's just not really an option. Oblivion, you can just wear heavy armor, feather it all away. Feather costs 0.01 base cost, 1/100th of the base cost in Morrowind. Something like shield is still very expensive. Even 20 shield for 30 seconds is still cost quite a bit, 62 magicka. But it says right here you can get 168 armor with just wearing the best light armor. That's a lot of armor. Remember, the best weapon in the game hits for 80. This is double that. It's going to reduce the damage by quite a bit. It's very effective. I don't think you really need to be tankier than that. Next, we have Longblade. Unlike the other weapons, I'm not going to go through all of them, but there are so many artifacts, so many unique items that are just really good as Longblade, and because of that, it also goes in A tier. It functions the same as other weapon skills, though, and really, like I said, weapon skills are the flavor. Which one do you want? Longblade is, a lot of people think it's generic and it's lame. I think they're really cool. I love the Knight fantasy. I love thinking about Frostmourne. There's that cool paladin sword in this. I think it's called like Crystal Mirror or whatever. There's a lot of awesome long blades, and clearly the devs just really liked blades, long blades. You could get daikatanas. It's just, there's more options, there's more variety, and they're just better with the artifacts and the unique items. All right, we can pick up the pace because we've done a lot of these already. We've talked about everything around them. Marksman, I hate Marksman because it's just so hard for me to aim. Morrowind's an old game. It's 2002, and the gunplay is even worse than Fallout 3 in New Vegas, which I thought was awful. Combine that with a dice roll hit chance. It's like you can't tell if you missed because you suck and your arrow missed, or you missed because your dice roll missed. And when you combine those two things together and having to deal with getting all the arrows back, it's just, I hate this skill. And so I actually can't really give you the most accurate position for where it should be based on how good a skill it is. With that said, I would never not have a way to use levitation and to kill enemies at range with destruction. Marksman just seems a silly way to do that. I'm going to put it in C tier. This is probably my least confident ranking because I've played with it so little. I can read about it and I can watch videos on it. That only really tells me so much. Looking at the numbers, it looks mediocre. It doesn't look amazing. With that said, what the heck? I'm just not going to do it. I don't enjoy it. And because I don't enjoy it, I'm not going to use it. So take this one as you will. Let me know in the comments if you disagree so strongly about my marksman ranking. Next, we have medium armor, and this is obviously the worst armor skill. I say that like everyone should just know it. There's just not a lot of great options. They look really cool. It's unique. I love that they have this as a skill. I just wish they fleshed it out a little bit better. It's obviously in between light armor and heavy armor. It provides a good amount of protection, but it weighs more than light armor and less than heavy armor. With that said, if you're wearing the best heavy armor in the game, it gives less protection than the best light armor because they don't have enough options for it. This is one you pick for the aesthetic because you want to wear the Indoril armor. You want to wear the Royal Guard armor. You want to wear something. The Ebony Mail is also phenomenal. It's got 50 shield on it and resist magic and resist fire 75 points. Put this on a Nord and you have just absurd elemental resists. However, it's one item. Honestly, you can just use a trainer to get medium armor up, so you can wear this with your better light armor, with your better heavy armor. It does only weigh 20. Honestly, though, is that worth it? One item to pick it as a major skill? I wouldn't pick it as a major skill. If you do want to wear this item, seriously, just wear it anyway, because even if you have low skill, the 50 shield and the resistance and the resist magicka is what's so good. It's not, if you're losing some of this armor value because of your low medium armor skill, it's not a big deal. 50 shield's just going to give you 50 armor from one item anyway. So medium armor as a skill, picking as a major, you just shouldn't do it. Okay, next we have Mercantile. Now, I got to go back to a spreadsheet for this. I did a bunch of random testing. I found a couple different vendors. I used console commands to change my Mercantile skill. I tried them at the same disposition, and I sold different items, and I saw the different percentages. These three numbers on the bottom are what's important here. Going from 5 to 30 skill gave me 36% more gold from selling items. Going from 50 all the way up to 100 gave me about the same bonus. That last 50 skill. So picking it as a major skill just starts you with this 36% bonus. It's pretty solid. And almost all of your gold is going to come from selling items. Now, the one exception to this is, well, the Scamp in Caldera, he doesn't care about your Mercantile skill. He just gives you the value of the item. So if it's valued at 2,000, he gives you 2,000 gold for it. If you want to try a playthrough without the Scamp, this is an amazing skill. You practically need it to get a bunch of gold to make the game functional. So it's going to be A tier. However, if you're just going to use the Scamp for all your gold, obviously Mercantile plummets in value. It's not so worthwhile. You also don't save much money from buying items. That changed like 5 to 20%. It wasn't a big deal, but it's really when you sell things, if you have low Mercantile skill, they will really rip you off. I also hate how Mercantile levels. Oh, and we got to go backwards. I forgot something about medium armor. The master trainer for medium armor isn't actually in the game. So you can't train medium armor up to 100, unlike the other skills. Total pain in the ass. Screw medium armor. Don't pick medium armor. Mysticism has all sorts of super valuable spells. Mark and Recall are pretty much vital. The interventions are really nice, so you can get amulets pretty easily that have those as enchants that will just recharge over time. Soul Trap's really important, but Soul Trap's really cheap, a lot cheaper than it is in Oblivion. You'll be able to get a Soul Trap spell that's on target for 20 seconds and it won't cost anything. Telekinesis is incredible. It lets you steal everything you want. Absorb health spells. Well, I use an OpenMW setting that actually will allow absorb health to be reflected and to kill me, but in the base game, and if you don't have that setting checked, or sorry, if you do check it, then it goes to Classic. In Classic, absorb health being reflected will not deal any damage to you. Some of these spells just feel completely vital to me. Mark and Recall cost 18. If you don't pick it as a major skill, you'll have to train it up some just to make sure you can cast those reliably. However, that's not that hard to do. And after you get about 30 Mysticism, like you don't really need any more. You can cast all the spells that you need to, Soul Trap and everything. Getting it higher will allow you to cast those more expensive spells like Reflect and stuff. Because I play where Absorb Health can be reflected, it's not special in that way. I'm going to put this in B. If you don't play with that box checked, or if you do play with it checked where it plays Classic and Absorb Health can't be reflected, then that would move up to A. Mysticism is very good, very important. I like to pick it a lot, but I also don't want to pick every single willpower skill just because it's nice to be able to level willpower, and Destruction and Alteration are also really good. And so is this next one, Restoration. There are so many Restoration spells. Fortify Skill, which is overpowered. You can't get it in the base game now. You need to use the expansions to get it, which is fine. But things like Fortify Attribute, Cure Your Own Disease, Resist Magicka, all of these are very useful, very important, and even just the basic, healing yourself, restore health. It's a lot cheaper in Morrowind. Now, Morrowind's got a faster paced combat, so you can, die really quickly, but just having Hearth Heal is enough to, bring yourself back to life at the beginning of the game. It costs 13 Magicka, but can heal you up to 80. It's ridiculous. An average of 50 health. Early game, you only have about 50 health. I like to pick Restoration on pretty much all of my characters. It also, that Resist Magicka, you're able to cast 100% Resist Magicka to put on the Boots of Blinding Speed and not be blinded, and you can do that right away at the start of the game if you pick this as a major skill. Because of that, and that alone, I think it is actually being bumped up to S with these others. You could argue it's A or B, and I would, there's reasonable arguments for that, but just that very key point of I can get Boots of Blinding Speed and not be blinded because I picked Restoration, it's so useful. And, why not? Get a healing spell. It's got other value too throughout the entire game, so it's just a very useful skill to have. Okay, next we have Security, and Security is going to go in F as well. This will probably be my last F skill. Maybe, we'll see. That's because even at 5 skill, you have a 21% chance to stop a trap. Now, this isn't including the power of your probe, and most probes, so because of their quality is 0.5, even at an apprentice, it's actually half of that, but a trap doesn't have any difficulty. And traps are the only thing you can't do without alteration. And I've already shown that for 60 magicka, you can open a 100 difficulty lock. It is very easy to just use alteration to open any lock. And you want alteration for levitate. You want alteration for other effects as well, so you should have it. If you really don't want alteration, you really don't want to do that, you can still just buy scrolls or get an enchanted item. If I have a journeyman lockpick too, even at 5 skill, you'll be able to pick that lock at the beginning of the game, and you won't be able to pick more difficult locks. But let's say you major in it, you pick stealth specialization, you get the right race, and you train it up to 50. Well, a 50 difficulty lock still only has a 16% chance, so you'll have to sit there and try again and again and again and again, and it'll be annoying. A 100 lock isn't an option yet. Even at max fatigue, even with 100 agility, it's still negative. Even at 75 skill with a journeyman lockpick, you cannot unlock the max difficulty lock. With 75 alteration, you can very easily cast a 60 magicka spell and open the hardest lock in the game. So security just falls behind. Early game, I guess it's fine, but it's never good, it's never great, and it's just a waste of your time. This is an RP skill if you want to be a master thief who uses lockpicks. But also, unlike Oblivion, in Oblivion, you try to open a chest, it opens up a lockpicking menu, and you can spam auto attempt. It's faster. You don't have to open up your menu, find the right open spell, and use a spell on it to open it. In Oblivion, alteration is slower. In Morrowind, you have to open up your inventory, find the lockpick, equip it, and then attack the thing repeatedly. Where opening a spell is, well, the spell menu is actually better in the Morrowind menu than Oblivion. You can quickly find the spell and unlock it. So alteration is faster. So alteration just beats out security in every way for picking locks. Next, we have short blade. Now, because of the way I talked about armor, you might have a feeling of why short blades are not as good. A lot of people argued with me about how, no, short blades are really good. Well, they don't have that much enchant. In fact, they have less enchant than all the other weapons. There are a couple good items that you can find, but if you're not doing a custom enchant, well, the most damage you're doing here is 30 damage. And yes, they're very, very fast, so the whole point is getting a good enchantment, and it's not bad. With 100 strength, that short blade is doing 45 damage. At 135 armor rating, your enemy's hitting the armor cap, and you're only doing 11 physical damage per swing. It's very low. So even if you're attacking double speed, it's 22. With a Daedric Battle Axe against someone with the same armor rating, you'd be dealing 56, which is more than 5 times the damage. So even if it's half the speed, the physical damage is 5 times as high. With that said, you're probably relying on your enchant to do a bunch of damage, but if you have a really powerful custom enchant, it's going to run out of enchant really fast, unless you have a bunch of enchant skill, and that's a whole nother thing that, enchant takes a lot to get up, as I've already shown you and talked about. It's not the easiest thing in the world. So because of the way armor works, it reduces more percentage damage if you're dealing less damage. Short blade's a little bit worse. With that said, it's not bad. You could still argue it's B tier, but my thing's looking a little wonky, so I'm going to put it in high C tier. People like short blade. I think the final thing that solidifies its C tier ranking is that it is a stealth skill. I think if you look at this, the magic skills are clearly just the best, and it's not even close. And if you want to play a combat character, well, that's reasonable too, to pick combat and go like long blade, heavy armor, block. Those are fine too. But stealth, really? You're going to boost your hand-to-hand, your security, your marksman, and that's because you're playing a short blade character? It's just bad. I don't recommend ever picking stealth specialization. Really, in any Elder Scrolls game, I think it's just a bad idea. They always do it bad. Sneak is stupid. Sneak is an RP thing. Again, if you want to go invisible, go invisible. If you want to use chameleon, use chameleon. Those are illusion spells. Pickpocketing is just never going to work. The chances are always ridiculously low. I don't even want to pull up the formulas. We're getting near the end of the video, and so maybe I'm wasting a little bit of time here. But sneak just isn't very good. Again, if you want to RP as a master thief, you're picking sneak, you're picking security, you're picking stealth specialization. Maybe then you want to pick short blade too. It's not a terrible idea. Magic just does what sneak does 10 times better. It's not even close. It also makes you move really slow, and the way it gains experience is weird. It functions differently than it does in the other games. I think Oblivion and Skyrim do a much better job with the stealth mechanics. They're more fun to play around with. I don't think they're fun in Morrowind, and that is a big deal. If you want to play a stealth character or Master Thief, try it out, but you might have seen me before steal something with telekinesis where I just hide behind a pillar. I have 5 sneak skill in those videos. it doesn't matter. It's very easy to just steal something with no sneak skill. One last thing about playing this Master Thief type character. The high security trainers do require you to have a high Thieves Guild rank. That's fine. It's totally a good thing. Most of these Master trainers should require some type of faction service. But just keep that in mind. It's another reason it's not quite as useful as Alteration. It requires you to be going this specific route. If you're trying to rely on House Hlalu, well, it's not going to get you very far. Our last weapon skill, we have Spear. Spears are awesome. They're cool because they're unique, and that honestly bumps them up quite a bit. They have long reach. If you're playing Spear, most of them do very high thrust damage and very low of the other types, chop and slash. Because of this, you want to make sure you're moving forward and back when you're using Spears. That will always keep it as a thrust. Or you just turn on, the always use best attack thing, whatever. With that said, none of the unique Spears are amazing. They're not anything special. There are only 2 total Spear trainers in the game. The Master Trainer is just hiding behind a locked door, so if you don't look him up, you might never find him, but I would look him up. Because the only other Spear Trainer can only get you to 45, which isn't really very high. It is good to use him. Spear is governed by endurance, and that makes it different from most of the other weapon skills as well. With that said, it doesn't really make it any better or worse, so I'm going to put it right next to Axe and Blunt because it's just as good as Axe and Blunt. I think Longblade takes the cake because it has all those awesome unique weapons. Axe, Spear, and Blunt are all good. Okay, next we have Speechcraft. Now, Speechcraft is a little bit different than it was in the other games. You have a lot of options. So Admire is usually your best bet. It's just kind of the bread and butter of Speechcraft. Intimidate is a temporary one. You try and scare them to lower their fight and raise their flee to make them run away. If it's successful in raising their disposition, it's not permanent. Because if you close the conversation and reopen it, all that disposition gain goes away. And this is kind of logical. It makes sense. But if you're trying to think of it in too much of a video gamey terms, it won't quite make sense. So just know Intimidate is not your best bet unless it's just for someone that you want to immediately get them to like you and then never talk to them again. Taunt is how you can kill people. You taunt them a whole bunch. It'll only work if you have high Speechcraft. You can raise their fight and get them to try and attack you. Then when you kill them, it's self-defense. Bribe doesn't even use Speechcraft. It uses the actually good skill, which is Mercantile. And for the most part, at low levels, you're going to need to use Bribe. Speechcraft, even at about 40, you're just not going to see a bunch of success with it. So to actually use Speechcraft reliably, you have to use trainers to get it up to like 60 or 70, at least in my experience, or just accept that you're going to make a bunch of people hate you while you're trying to level it up. And when you get to 0 disposition, it pretty much always fails. The real way to make people like you, well, there's charm. You can charm them like 40 for 1 second. That's not going to be very expensive. And then try to admire them. If they're already at 80 or 90 disposition, your chance to succeed is a lot higher. Because it's just better ways to do it, in my opinion. Speechcraft is going to go D tier. It does have some value and you can use it. It's best used in tandem with Illusion or in tandem with Restoration, buffing those other skills. All right, our last skill, Unarmored. Unarmored is actually interesting. Part of me wants to put it in F tier because it's so bad. Even if you pick it as a major skill, you specialize in it, and you get it up to, let's say, 40. That's going to give you 10 armor rating. Even 50 is 16 armor rating. That's not very good compared to the other armors. At 100, you have 65 armor rating, which is acceptable, I guess. But light armor is just not that heavy. And that gives you 168 armor, and you get to wear all of this enchanted armor. So Unarmored's kind of just an RP thing. If you do want to RP as Unarmored, and you care about that, well, what you can do to make it still very powerful, and I would say even beyond viable but good, is, well, if you look at the formula, it's got an exponent. And exponents get really nuts when you get above the base caps within the game. So if I fortify my Unarmored skill to 200, well, I get up to 260 armor rating, which is comparable to a full set of Daedric. Get it up to 300, and you have way more armor than any other armor would ever get you in the game. Obviously, getting 400 skill is a little absurd, but you can get it for just a brief moment. And that pretty much puts you at the armor cap against any opponent in the game. Even 300 is at the armor cap for most attacks that will ever happen to you. But the very strongest stuff in the game, even this, will be reduced by 75%. It will do 25% damage at this armor rating. And that's without wearing armor. So that's kind of just, I think, kind of a quirky thing about Unarmored. With that said, to be any good, you have to raise it to absurd levels. It's very bad at the beginning. I mean, let's look at 10 Unarmored skill. It's not even 1 armor rating. It's just silly. You could argue it goes in F tier, but because I think you can push it to the limits with some fortified skill, it's going to go up to D tier. It's still kind of bad and worthless. It's got some little bit of function there, just like Sneak and Speechcraft and stuff. All right, that's the end of the tier list. If you want to take anything from this, like every Elder Scrolls, the magic skills are really powerful. Stealth kind of sucks, but it's a little more intermixed in this one, so I think it's good. Let me know in the comments. Just bitch at me. It's fun to hear all your opinions. All right, thanks for watching.
Here we go now. Get it tight. To the rhythm of